You're listening to Nakedly Examined Music, a podcast about songs and songwriters. My name is Mark Linsenmeyer. My guest for episode 223 is Dale Crover, best known as the drummer from the Melvins, which was perhaps the parent band of Nirvana. Dale even played briefly with Nirvana in the early days. You're right now hearing Spread Eagle Beagle, the final track from the Melvins' Houdini, 1993. Dale has played on all 28 albums by the Melvins. Most songs are written by the guitarist and lead singer Buzz Osborne, but they also do a lot of group writing, and in 1995 they each released a solo EP. Around that same time, 1994, Dale started Altamont, which he was the lead guitarist and lead singer. They released 4 albums in parallel with Melvins through 2005. In the past 8 years or so, Dale has started recording on his own some more. He's just released his 3rd full solo album, Glossolalia, and we're going to be talking about I Quit from that record, then Bad Move from his 2017 solo album, The Fickle Finger of Fate, and then a Melvins tune that Dale wrote the basis of, The Bit, from their 1996 album Stag. And for both that song and Bad Move, there was a new recording made in 2021 by Mekons for an all-acoustic album called Five-Legged Dog. So we'll hear little clips of those alternate interpretations of those two songs. Finally, we're going to hear a tune from the last Altamont album, The Monkey's Uncle, 2005. The song is called El Stupido. For more information, please see dalecrover.com. For more about this podcast, see nakedlyexaminedmusic.com. And if you sign up to support the podcast through patreon.com/nakedlyexaminedmusic, you'll get a fully ad-free feed and can follow along in my detailed notes for all these songs. I will have played a little bit of Spread Eagle Beagle, the final track from the seminal Melvins album Houdini, 1993, just to tell people, yes, you are a guy who plays big drum parts, but you're so much more than that, as we will reveal here. I hear you actually started on guitar, right? Drums was not even your primary instrument?
That's right. I'm a guitar player that wanted to be a drummer that wanted to be a guitar player.
Yes. So even though many Melvins albums, but you had Altamont going at the same time, you're sort of, was that more of a solo project? I wasn't clear whether you're singing all the leads on that or whether you're doing the lead guitars or just the rhythm guitars or what exactly, how that...
Yeah, I do all the guitars on that.
Okay.
On Altamont, yes. Guitar player and lead singer in that band.
Sure. So even though this is only, I guess, technically your 3rd solo release, you've really got 7 solo releases, if we count the Altamont stuff.
There are some of those songs that I wrote with the bass player, Dan, who also wrote some songs on my new solo record with me. Longtime friend and guy that I jam with.
So orient us for, we're about to hear I Quit from your new solo album. You pronounce the name of it.
Glossolalia.
Glossolalia. All right. 2024.
It's so easy to say. Come on.
Glossolalia. Yes. I can say it 10 times fast.
That's the technical term for talking in tongues. And I guess when you say it, it sounds like you're talking in tongues.
Yeah. Can you say a little about where you're at with this and the song I Quit specifically, just very briefly before we hear it, and then we'll talk more in detail about it.
I can't remember how I came up with the riff, but I had this main riff for it. And I kind of thought it sounded like, I don't know, Sonic Youth or something, because it was in an odd tuning. The A string and drop it to G. It's like a blues tuning that Keith Richards uses a lot, but I call it the lazy Keith Richards because he takes off the E string and then you also tune the high E down to, I think, D. But I don't do that. I just tune one string. So anyway, I had a tune like that and then you play a regular bar chord and it sounds kind of dissonant. And so I just messed around with my digital 8-track with that riff and came up with the other parts to it, put lyrics to it. And then when I recorded it, I wanted to get some guest stars on this record. And I thought that Kim Thale from Soundgarden would do a great job playing lead guitar in it. So he's on the song as well.
charm, loss of control. Will make you leave. It will ascend you. Contradicting just how you feel. You repeat yourself 1,000 times until you believe that it's real. Even though we said that you were wrong, loss of control makes you unkind. It will offend you. Distorted mind.
So this started as a guitar tune, you were saying.
Oh, for sure.
Interesting, though, that you sort of established this grimy thing, but like there's two intros, and you thought about your structure there.
It needed something before that main part, I think just going into that seemed odd to me. So I can't remember really how I came up with it. I just was like, it needs something else. So the whole thing has like 4 parts to it, maybe.
Did this originate doing an entirely solo record as a pandemic project, as so often happens, or was this all after that?
No, I started writing songs for this definitely after the whole pandemic. So maybe about the last year and a half or so, I spent writing these songs, which is pretty quick for me. Like with the other solo records I've done, it was kind of over the years. I'd write a few songs here and there and just kind of like stockpile them and wait till I had enough. But, I was kind of like, I want to do another record. I should get busy doing it. And so I just kind of went on a songwriting spree. And that one was definitely one of the later tracks that I wrote. Probably not the last one, but close to the end of songwriting. Yeah, definitely within the last, like, probably 8 months, I came up with that song.
So the songwriting, and are you demoing these, or are you just recording the part that you will layer over? Is your demo the click track essentially, or?
A lot of times I don't do demos just because I would just have most of the parts figured out and then work it out in the studio. But I used to do a lot of like 4-track demoing a long time ago. Even like the very first Melvins EP, the solo EPs that looked like Kiss, that stuff was all like 4-track demoed. And I used that as a tool for songwriting too. I ended up getting kind of an updated version of the 4-track recorder, like an 8-track Tascam, 8-track digital recorder. And that also really inspired me to like write songs. And it was such a easier to use than the 4-track almost, because you can't screw it up.
Easier to use at this point than just plugging into your computer or something.
I've never had like a computer recording setup. Like since we lived in Southern California, like early 2000s, we worked with Toshi Kasai, and he's so good at Pro Tools that neither Buzz or myself bothered to like learn how to use it, just because he was so much better and faster and easier doing that. I mean, when I would write stuff or come up with stuff, I would just use my phone, just use the voice memo app to like write songs or whatever. Actually, I'm really bummed that Apple used to have like a music memo app that was really cool. You could layer stuff on it, but they got rid of it. But anyway, yeah, I got this digital 8-track, and like I said, it was so easy to use, and I just use that for songwriting. It's got a built-in click track. I would record like the guitar part first and then go back and put the drums on it. And then the drum parts for me were so easy, I could just already hear them in my head. I didn't really have to like work them out.
To me, this tat, 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 it's not a funny time signature. It's not even a funny riff, but it's got a very definite, unique to this song pulse to it. I don't know. Do you even feel like you've done so many drum parts to so many songs? Do you feel like each one has its own unique character, or, oh, no, this is actually exactly the same part that I play for these 7 other songs for the basic riffs?
I mean, sometimes I feel like, oh yeah, I've done this before, but I just kind of feel it, I guess. As lame as that sounds, I knew what it should be like, I could hear it.
Yeah. Okay. So even though you're writing it on guitar, you're sort of writing it while drumming in your head. So it's not like the guitar is fundamental and then you're coming along and saying what matches that. It's like, it's just already there as a package.
Sometimes things would change. It depends. Like even with the Melvins, we've always said that we're kind of accidentalists. So, I mean, sometimes I would come up with something that was like, oh, I didn't mean to do that, but that sounds really cool there. So keep it.
Let me insert. You've introduced this after doing the intro. You've introduced the second intro, and the way that the band comes in, I thought it was an interesting spot. Just that you're doing the full second half of the riff together, the whole band, as opposed to letting it do it and then going, bup, 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 it up, doing it just for 2 beats or whatever.
That definitely was a feel thing as well. And I think happened when I was recording it, like, oh, here's where the drum should come in right here.
Sure.
So when I did the demoing, I would do the guitar first to a click and then do drums and then add stuff onto it after that. Vocals usually being last.
You've got this, I wrote, freaky Devo synth lead. Where did this particular sound come from? This atonal, let's just spike in different directions noise.
Yeah, I think when I was doing the demo, I used this like pedal that's, to get all nerdy here, it's this snarling dog ring modulator. Probably that with like some kind of fuzz box attached to it.
Oh, so it's on guitar. It's not even a keyboard sound.
It's guitar that sounds like a keyboard.
And was that idea, that was maybe going to be the only lead before you got the idea, oh, no, let's get Kim to come and layer stuff? Or were you just leaving space?
Where Kim's lead was, like on the demo, I did something. Just kind of like, I'm like, it needs something here, some kind of lead. And I just kind of like threw something on there and figured I would worry about what it would be later. When I was doing the demo, I didn't think of Kim. But when I was talking with the record label about recording or whatever, they're like, what do you think about getting some guest stars for this? Something that you've never done before. Maybe it'll help out. I'm like, yeah, I'm not opposed to that. That sounds good. And I kind of tried to think of who I would want. And I remember being in a store someplace and hearing Soundgarden over the store radio or whatever. I'm like, oh, fuck yeah, Kim. He'd be perfect for this song in particular. He said, I asked him and he said yes right away. So that was really cool. And then he liked doing it and offered to do more. So he's on a couple songs on the record.
And did you actually get him to come in and do it, or did you just send it to him and then you were surprised by what you got back?
I sent it to him and said, do what you feel. And he did. And I think he even had a couple attempts at doing it, just trying to get something that he really liked. And also he's like, I tried to do something that was kind of outside my normal lead playing and do something a little bit more experimental maybe. And it came out good. I really liked what he played a lot. I was really happy to have him play on it.
And are you even hearing his part then before it goes into Pro Tools, sort of off? It's going to the mixing stage. You're not adding stuff anymore. Or did you import it into your 8-track or anything like that?
We were already in the record and had all the parts recorded. So,
okay. So the 8-track was just for the demo. That's not like.
No, I think I sent him the demo and just said, here's where the solo goes. You can hear mine. And that's your cue of where it's supposed to be. So, and then just telling him where in the song it starts. But I let him do whatever he wanted to because, I wanted him for his guitar playing. And I don't need to give somebody like that direction other than start here.
Can you say something about this sort of vocal character? Whoever wrote your press release says you're channeling Gary Newman on this song. I'm not sure if I...
That's kind of what I thought it sounded like when I was recording it. I tried to sing it in a higher register and I was like, it just kind of sounded too regular. And I'm like, it needs to be weirder, or just different. And so I just tried it in like lower register and I'm like, oh, this sounds way better. The way Bowie sings or something like that. Not that I'm anywhere as good as David Bowie or Gary Newman, but they both kind of are similar. And even there's a certain effect that those guys will use sometimes, like this weird kind of like almost weird doubling thing. And I kind of heard that in the song. I was trying to imitate an English singer.
Okay. So this like I tell you soon, this guy, these sort of swoops and stuff, that's the sort of early 80s.
It's almost my fake bullshit English accent.
For you has lost its charm. Loss of control.
So we're going to have these pauses and then use the drums to always roll to the next section. Yeah. And he thought about this grand chorus that comes in after that little Stonesy kind of thing you're saying.
There was a pause there and it needed a little drum fill into it. So that's what I came up with, I guess. That's about how much thought went into it.
Sure. Well, even just, you got this main verse riff and then rolling into this chorus. Was there a thought of where the chorus itself came from as opposed to, that we needed something less choppy? Let's roll it, make it a little more relaxed, something like that.
I don't know. When I was writing it, I can't quite remember. I just trying to figure out where to go. And I'm sure it was just trial and error, trying to figure out a part.
Well, did you have the lyrics and the themes in mind as you're spilling out the music, or does that always come later?
No, not at all. That all came secondary. And even with like doing vocals and things like that, I'll just, once the music's done, I won't even have the lyrics and I'll just try to do something and almost kind of scat in a way, or just whatever comes up the top of my head, I'll say or sing, or I can come up with melody pretty easily for vocals. So sometimes I'll do that and lay it down, even if it's just gibberish, and then go back and write words to it. And sometimes even use some of the things they say. It's all kind of timing. There's a timing and rhythm to the melody, and then I'll write the lyrics to that.
I think also from your press release, it mentions thematically, this is touching on hardcore crime fiction territory. I don't know that I would have read that into, does it even matter what the lyrics mean?
Probably not. What does it say on there?
It says, I Quit touches on hardcore crime fiction territory. Maybe this was someone else's interpretation of...
Maybe that's what they think, and it could be. But
the first verse sound a little like some menacing person who's toying with their next victim or something. But was that even...
That's fair enough. Trying to control somebody that you can't was kind of the theme. But even with writing lyrics and things like that, it's like, I'll try to come up with one good line. And I know a lot of other people do the same thing, which I didn't know when I was doing it, but I've heard other people say that if I can come up with a good line here and there, I can write the rest of it and write it around it. And that's kind of the way I write. Lyrics were always kind of the toughest for me for a long time, just because I think just lack of confidence writing them. But I really feel, even on this record, I feel like I'm much more comfortable doing it. And I kind of have figured out a process to do it and just kind of understand the whole thing a little bit better. And in the past, I'd always take forever. I guess just being kind of self-conscious about it. Does this sound stupid? Is this dumb? Does this make sense? Where now it's just I just kind of let it happen. Some songs will just be pretty instant. And if I can come up with one good line, then I can write around the rest of it. And that's kind of how I did this. I'll also change stuff if I don't like a word or if it doesn't fit, if it's not fitting rhythmically. And I'll even change stuff on the fly in the studio. I'm like, that doesn't work.
And by the one good line, are you meaning more just like that really sounds good in that spot? So what is the one good line in this song if you were, as you're describing it? I mean, I really like this in the chorus, this little psychoanalytic, why are people mean? Well, because there's something that's out of control for them and they want to control it. Like, that's insightful. I don't know if that's the thing that you would point at as like, that's the hook that everybody's going to be singing along with. It just sounds like wise words slotted into a... So I didn't know if that was what you were talking about.
It would have been a verse line, and I'm trying to think of which one it was.
Your lazy eyes follow him, wait to see which way he'll run again.
It was probably that first line. I'm sure that I wrote that first.
Okay. And that's the only place where it sounds like you're describing some sort of weird serial killer character or something like that. Because the rest of it is like, you could be talking to anybody that you're sort of frustrated with who's acting out and trying to work through some thing with them. We all know how you feel. You repeat yourself 1,000 times. That's the part that you could go in any situation until you believe that it's real, even though we said that you were wrong. Does these even refer to anything in particular? Not that I'm saying reveal your personal life or unstrip any of this.
I think everything I write is pretty fictional.
Let us have the first ad break here, which is a promo swap, another podcast that is advertising me and I'm talking about them. And it's very appropriate for today's topic. Music fans far and wide, have you considered exploring the darker side of things, the heavier side? If so, do check out the Heavy Metal 101 podcast. There's nowhere else around where you can have this much fun learning all about some of the wildest music ever made. Join Eric, a university music professor and lifelong metalhead, and John, a classical conductor and metal novice, as they explore, discuss, and argue about heavy metal. The Heavy Metal 101 podcast is available everywhere you love to listen to podcasts. So in the choruses, they have space for things to answer each other. So it's, here is the riff, loss of control. And then even that is answered usually by some giant drum fill. So it's like you're having these call and response. Yeah. Any thoughts about just how much space you want to leave in these things?
Buzz will say this a lot. He's like, some singers just don't shut up. They have to sing the whole time. There's got to be space in the song. And I agree. There's not a lot of lyrics in any of my stuff, really. There's just enough and without overdoing it.
We've done the chorus for the second time, and we're going to enter this. It's a bridge, but it's an instrumental bridge. So is that Kim doing the harmonics on the guitar stuff?
Yes, that's where his part starts.
Oh, so this smeary stuff that he was doing before is not him? That's you?
That beginning noise stuff that you're talking about, that's guitar.
Yeah.
And then after the first verse, there's another weird thing in there. It's an omnichord, which is this weird thing that Toshi has. And Toshi is the one that played that. And then there's another noisy thing. It's a little different. It's not quite as abrasive and maybe a little bit more melodic, but that's the omnichord.
All right. So let me play just one of the sections in between. 156, just to clarify, this is one of the places I noted with back to the intro pattern with a bunch of squealy flange lead guitar lines. I was thinking these were Kim's contributions.
That's me on guitar.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. So it's interesting to have these really crazy sound. I mean, is that a flanger with what else is making it not sound like it has a particular pitch? Just that you're scraping around? I know without actually demonstrating it to me, it's hard to describe, but do you remember what your pedal combination is?
I can't exactly remember other than, like I said, it was that snarling dog ring modulator.
Oh, okay. That's what that is.
That with maybe a couple of other boxes. And I mean, at the studio, we have a ton of stomp boxes and effects and stuff like that. And we'll just I don't quite remember what combination we used because we definitely do a lot of experimenting with stuff like that. And I would just play guitar. And I told Toshi, he'd heard the demo and I'm like, we need something like this. And so I let him hook something up while I'm playing. And then we'll just mess around until we say, oh, that sounds good. Let's try that.
This part was purely a studio creation. You probably don't even remember exactly what you did in terms of riffs.
Not at all.
I mean, I guess the fact that it's punctuated, like a lot of times when you get a big sound like that, you just keep it going. It's just a wash of noise, or maybe even layer more of it. But here you're doing these squirrel squeak, 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 and then it stops and hear the background. And then you do it again and you let it stop, which I guess that's sort of like what you're saying with the vocals is.
Yeah, it was too intense to have it going the whole time. I would have eaten up everything. It would have just canceled everything else out. So, I mean, it was better that it was more weirder staccato, not going the whole time. And then it makes a little bit more sense.
That is funny. So the first time I tried to include a giant distorted fast solo like that into a song, I was like 17. And the only place I could put it was, let's put it at the end and have it actually consume the whole song. Because I'm like, where do you go from there? Like if the whole song is not a wall of noise, if you want it to, anyway. So yeah, that's
right. Well, that works. Something like that works.
But yeah, controlling it, keeping it controlled in little bursts also makes a lot of sense.
After the first verse, because that's before the verse, right?
Well, it's something like that happens near the beginning, but then the place that I was playing is after the first chorus.
So the intro that has the crazy squealing on it as well, that's the guitar with the ring modulator. And I think the first one might be more intense than after the verse.
Yeah, that initial burst of rah.
Yeah, that's all guitar.
Okay, yes, of course. All right, well, I think we've hit most of the elements in here. You end with this mantra thing. I guess was this to just give Kim enough space, and then you end with this clock chimes synth thing. Was that just the same thing from the beginning, coming back the omnichord? Or
that's the omnichord. I mean, you said it was kind of like a big chant thing and psychedelic mess.
Any thoughts on just how long you want to let that go? I mean, given that you said he actually came in and did this in front of you, so you could.
He didn't. I sent it to him and he did it on his own.
So you had to decide the length before you decided how much interesting stuff he is going to give you, because you could have let him go another 2 minutes. But
probably so. I mean, I guess I just kind of figured it was long enough. Live, that might change. It might go a lot longer.
All right, well, let's move to the second tune, Bad Move, from your previous solo album, The Fickle Finger of Fate, 2017. This is one that has lived on a little while. I will also point folks, and maybe we'll talk for a minute about the Melvins Five-Legged Dog version from 2021. So there's a solo thing. You eventually, let's at least have the group mess around with it. And so there's a few different gestures on it, but we're going to play in full the original version here. Do you have anything to say? Just a few words about where you were at with this album, 2017, and with this song in particular before we hear it.
Yeah, well, this was my first solo record. And this particular song was one that I wrote with Dan Southwick, who plays in Altamont. And we were rehearsing for an Altamont show, and I was in the bathroom, and I heard him playing this riff, and I ran out really quick and told him to keep playing it so I could record it, because talk about accidentalist. He's definitely an accidentalist. Like, he'll play something. I'm like, wow, that's really cool. What is it? He's like, I don't know. I was just playing. So I ran back and made him play it and recorded it, and then ended up writing a song out of it.
So I thought this one might have started with that drum riff. It's so good. It's such an establishing thing. But you're saying, no, it's actually the bass riff. Dun, 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 dun. So in this case, it was actually a pre-existing thing that you were coming up with something to complement and not yourself.
I was in the bathroom. I heard him playing this riff, and I go back in the room, and he's playing that riff and singing some song about our drummer, singing like, that Joey. And I'm like, what the hell are you saying? And I'm like, oh, that sounds really cool. I know we can turn this into something cool. I don't know if I was even doing a solo record or had plans for it when he came up with that. When I ended up recording that first record, I needed something. I'm like, hey, can we use this? Can we finish this song? And so he's like, yeah, of course. And so that was the start of it. And then I wrote the chorus, which I think is just like one note, maybe two or three.
It gets back to the original riff pretty quickly. Yes.
Yeah, it's like a short chorus one time through, and then goes back to the main riff. But that main riff I thought was so hypnotizing that kind of carries the whole thing pretty much. And then I wrote the bridge, and the outro is just a play on that riff. So it was pretty simple and kind of sparse, mostly just bass and drums, with a little bit of guitar and a little bit of synth.
Right. This little theremin sort of fluttering synth thing, which clearly is not essential because then in the Melvins version, you guys did something else, that it was like little toy piano chimes or something. Something had to fill that spot, but not necessarily that.
Right. Well, that's the acoustic version of it. Because that's an acoustic record, believe it or not. We couldn't use synth because that's electric.
It would have to be a musical saw, which is a similar sound.
That's kind of what it sounds like. When I recorded that song, I had Dan come down, and I think I had messed with it and arranged it enough before he got there to kind of work it out. But I mean, back then, I wasn't really doing any demoing. Like I said, I just had riffs on my phone or whatever, and mostly just kind of built stuff in the studio.
So if you're still doing stuff with Dan here, was there a reason? Is it logistical? Is it a different business purpose? Like why this is not an Altamont record?
Just hadn't been playing, and I wanted to do a solo record, and logistical, really. Those two guys live in the Bay Area, and I live in Southern California, and it's hard for us to get together and do stuff. We tried it for a while, and we made it work for a while, but getting busy or whatever. I would definitely play with those guys again, and I'm sure that we will at some point, but then I just started doing solo stuff.
But you're saying Dan's playing the bass on this specific one, though, even though you did on the last one. And most of this album, you're playing your own bass parts, I assume, with the guitar?
This on the Fickle Finger Fate record?
Yes. Or was Dan there for that whole thing?
I'm trying to think. I might have played bass on something, but for the most part, Dan just played on that one song, and then Stephen McDonald played bass on pretty much everything else.
Yeah, so when you're working in a solo, quote-unquote, environment, I mean, is it help to have somebody there that you're laying down parts with, somebody to make it sort of more three-dimensional? I remember, hearing Dinosaur Jr. like, oh, well, yeah, I play the guitar and the drums, but I have to have somebody else do the bass just so that there's somebody who's not me that's not going to just like layer over the exact same thing 3 times.
For the most part, yeah. And just having Steve do bass. I mean, he's such a good bass player. It's just like, I have him come in for a day and like, he can do everything. He's really good. For my new record, Steve was unavailable because he was doing Red Cross stuff. And so I ended up playing bass on everything, but I also worked a lot harder on the bass parts than I had on previous stuff, knowing that I was probably going to be the one playing bass. So, but I mean, yeah, I had no problem handing it off to somebody like that because I know it's going to be good. And then, yeah, he comes up with great melodies and great bass lines, and he's like one of the best bass players there is.
I mean, of course, Melvin's notorious for going through many bass players, and I'm gathering not too heavy-handed in telling them what to do, because usually the guitars are so, they just have an obvious rhythmic spot that like, well, can you just support that, double that, add some riffs wherever you want to fill it out, as opposed to Cream or something, which is, 3 different things in 3 different directions.
Right.
Although even that, Sunshine of Your Love, like that sort of dictates, if the bass is not following what the guitar's doing on there, something's wrong.
Yeah. It's funny that that to me almost sounds like a bass riff first,
Yeah.
That song in particular. Early Melvin stuff, like the bass just followed the guitar, didn't really have its own part. And it wasn't until way later, probably not until definitely when we had Mark Duchem in the band, even though he was coming from a guitar world, he understood like, oh, it needs to be bass parts, it could be different than the guitar. So I think that's kind of when we branched off a little bit more. And then, yeah, I mean, like I said, Steven's so good. you know, and he was a real bass player, you know. I mean, usually it's a guitar player that gets kicked off to go play bass. Even Paul McCartney, he was the guitar player that got kicked off to go play bass, but Steven stuck with bass, and he's like the Paul McCartney of punk rock for sure.
And are you thinking in terms of melodic bass lines yourself when you're writing these, or are you really just like, you do what you want?
That with any musician pretty much too, you know?
Yeah, I guess as long as the functions are being fulfilled, right? Like, we need more support for this section. Don't fly around there, you know, hold it down. But other than that, it's just more like, are we doing the gestures together? Even
like with the Melvins, you know, like you said, we've had a bunch of different bass players. You know, whenever we've had somebody new, we've never said it has to be like this. You know, it's like, you know, here's how it goes. Here's how we think it goes and how we remember the way that it goes. But do your thing. We're playing with you because we like the way that you play. Do your interpretation of it. And I think I do that too when I'm playing. You know, I play with Red Cross. You know, I know that I'm not, like when I'm playing with other bands, I know I'm not doing the drum parts exactly how they are, but I'm doing my interpretation of them and how I hear them.
Let me play a little bit of the short chorus that repeats a couple times. It was more the transition. How do we get back to the verse? I'm worried about. Yeah, I really like that almost full stop with the drums sort of rolling to a stop. Was that just you stumbled upon?
Pretty much. I mean, I know with this song, I think we laid down the bass first. Yeah, we had to have. I had like an arrangement worked out, and then I went and recorded the drums. Probably messed around with it until I found something that I liked. And even with that drum sound, like we were going for something different. It's not a big drum sound, and not big open drums. You know, we're using the Beatles tea towel method on that. That, and then expanding on it from there with whatever effects we have going on with it. But they're very dry, almost 70s drum sound.
Yeah, I guess with a small group, there's room for whatever you're going to put in it. You can put as much reverb as you want on the drum.
Yeah, but we were, like I said, we weren't looking for some big drum sound. We were looking for something different, and definitely we were trying to be more experimental.
This is another one with an instrumental bridge. Let me play that. It seems like there was room for something else there, but you felt like let it ride and then let the drums take it because they really, you know, stick the end of that.
Exactly. Yeah. It almost sounds like I was like trying to come up with like a, what song is that? ZZ Top Tejas sort of vibe going on there, you know, with pretty clean guitar.
Yeah. Introducing that clean guitar when so much of the rest of it has been the sludge. Interesting move there.
So yeah, it needed something else. Funny because I said that the drums are really dry, but clearly maybe flat is more the word. Like they're flat, but then they definitely are affected. Listening to it now, it's definitely got some verb and some other stuff going on, which I'm not sure what, but it's probably not anything too standard.
Yeah. So how you end the song, that you introduce this guitar riff, which is really good and could have been like in the rest of the song. Let's hear.
It's just like a variation on the bass riff, making it a little bit different.
Yeah, I guess it makes it especially a little more singable or something. I don't know. It's just a nice little tag. Like I could see that impetus was to make the whole thing more catchy. Like that could have come in somewhere earlier, but like you saved it for the very end. Is that just because you just didn't think of it until you actually got to that point? Or was there a conscious decision to not have this earlier?
I can't quite remember. I mean, I think I had the whole part written before we recorded it. And funny because, I mean, though there is guitar in earlier parts of the song, that's really where the guitar comes in. You know, it's not until the end. That's actually when the guitar starts. Besides the bridge has got that little thing, but it's almost like a lead, I guess. But as far as like any kind of rhythm guitar, besides the noisy stuff in the chorus, that's where it comes in. It's kind of funny. It comes in, then it's done.
We wanted to also include in this treatment of one of your earlier writing efforts, one of the more popular Melvins songs, The Bit.
Yes.
So this was a co-write, right? That you did the instruments and he did, or, you know, the chords and the vocals were added more per usual.
I mean, I think I just said like, oh, I've got this song that maybe we could check out and maybe you'll like it. And I remember writing it, I think around the time that we did the Kiss parody EPs, where that was my first real solo record. I mean, I think I'd already had the other songs written and then came up with the riff to the bit right around that time or right after. Kind of remember before doing that EP, jamming with another drummer, kind of trying to figure out what to do. And I think that's when I came up with it, but it's been a long time, so I don't quite remember.
In that Buzz is credited as the lyricist, does that mean that you had your la la la's, that you had the melody written and that he just had to come up with something for that? Or was it just, here is just chords and patterns, and then he just decided even where the vocals went?
I don't know if I have the 4-track demo still. There might have been something on there, but I can't remember. Definitely there was not a chorus. You know, he arranged it too. Like I had all the riff parts, but then he arranged it to where it made more sense. When I came up with it, I was like trying to write something that was sort of like a grunge version of Kashmir.
Okay, yeah.
It's kind of Middle Eastern sounding, you know? Even when we recorded it, we ended up putting sitar on it. But I was trying to imitate sitar on the guitar.
Sure, not a Middle Eastern instrument, but a Orientalist flavor, yes. Somewhere from not the West.
Right. I guess maybe not Indian, Middle Eastern, some sort of flavor in there. You know what I mean? What would you consider Kashmir?
Suggesting an Iraqi influence or something. Yes, I can definitely see.
I mean, sitar fit, but I mean, even I suppose Middle Eastern instruments are sort of droney sounding to me, which is why sitar fit, you know? We probably didn't have anything other than that was like foreign. It's not nearly as good as Kashmir, but you know, that was kind of what I was thinking, like something like that, or almost like this song by Deep Purple called Perfect Stranger.
Oh, okay.
Which I suppose not too many people know that one.
From the 84 album or something, is that right?
Yeah, I think 85.
Yep.
the blood and not even shout live.
Yeah, a number of distinct sections here. So was the da 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 the chromatic thing, was that sort of the foundation of the song, and everything else is sort of, all right, well, let's just vamp on something before we get to that? Or do you even recall sort of what was the core of the song for you?
Oh, that main riff, I'm sure, was first. I mean, maybe I had the droney thing first. I mean, been a long time, so I can't quite remember, but
I'll try not to ask the same level of detail in terms of the structure and the things, but just the fact that this is in 6/8.
that's correct.
Yeah, so we have this sort of transition part, which in later live and the unplugged, it seemed like maybe either the bass is just higher up. Was it always doing, even on this recording, some kind of...
Probably on my original demo, I probably didn't have that part. And that might have been a section that those guys came up with, just to transition into it somehow.
Okay, so you were just thinking of it in terms of a drum, let's establish ourselves on a chord before we then launch into the verse, as opposed to let's leave all tonality for a second, which is sort of what it sounds like to me.
I mean, that's definitely a Melvins thing for sure. I'm sure that Buzz came up with that part.
And then the verse itself, here, let's hear some of that.
This is for cows. It's not for the size of me. Into my mouth. 914. Try some force. Try to leave the foundling dies close.
So again, it sort of sounds like you just wrote this as a drum part. Like there's no chord to speak of, really. We're just chucking.
It's just chugging along. And I probably envisioned that that's where like there would be some sort of verse or lyrics or whatever.
Okay, yes. And this is what I was thinking before. The transition riff to get to the chorus, 139. Any thoughts about that as a turnaround gesture? It's kind of a funny...
Other than I was trying to be Melvins-esque, I guess. Kind of write something that kind of fits our style.
This was before you did any Altamont stuff, right? That was a couple of years after this, or is this around the same...
No, it would have been before then, because this came out in...
96.
Oh, 96. Okay. Altamont started in 94.
So, all right. So you'd written a bunch of things. So were you in a different mode with that band? Like, we're creating a fresh thing. You know, it's still going to be sort of in the metal arena, something, but not specific.
Sure. I mean, I wasn't trying to start like a Melvins Jr. or anything like that. I wanted it different.
Well, I didn't know if you felt like, well, that's just the way I write, and so it's going to come out that way. Or the fact that, no, I'm not playing guitar in the Melvins, so it's going to be, by necessity, a completely different sounding thing.
Right. I mean, with this song, I know I had it in mind for like, sounds like a Melvins song. Could easily be a Melvins song. So, and it came out good. I mean, those guys liked it enough, and the way that it came out when we were finished with it, that it's the lead track on that record, which I was really excited about. And I think even at that point, I was much more self-conscious about my own songwriting and stuff like that, So it was really exciting. But, definitely Buzz helped out with arranging and finishing that song. Funny, I've been playing it live and saying, I wrote half of this song, the good half. You have to guess which part that is. But I mean, without him, it wouldn't have been the way that it is and been finished.
And also, if he's adding the lyrics, like I could see sometimes people don't even know what the lyricist is doing. Just like, do whatever you're doing. I'm over here. But now I see you have a mic. And even though in 1996 you didn't, but at the more recent live stuff, I'm seeing that you're singing in unison / harmony with it.
It's always been that way. I think people don't realize it, especially because now, since Madonna got herself a headset, I got one because I'm such a big Madonna fan.
So you don't have to worry about keeping your head in one spot as your body moves around the kit.
I used to be really good at like having a mic stand, a boom stand, and moving it out of the way between singing. But I've always sang, since I've been in the band. So, I mean, it was always live for sure. And I would always double up on Buzz. But then I think people just didn't, once I got a headset, people didn't realize where the vocals were coming from, probably. Or even thinking that there was another vocal. But
I guess it's part of what just explains, people talk about just how you two are just so absolutely in sync. And if you are singing the words along with him, even if they're not ones you wrote, that there has to be, I don't know, is there discussion then of like, what does this mean? What am I singing? What is coming out of my mouth?
No, I mean, a lot of times I won't even ask him. I'll just like imitate what it sounds like.
So do you know, even with this song that you've done for years and years and years, what the hell? This is for cows. It's not for the size of me, into my mouth, 940. Like, do you have any idea even what that's about?
It's about a horse.
Okay.
The bit in your mouth.
Oh, sure. No, I had not gotten that from just listening. But I see. All right. I'm alive and I got the silver.
I mean, some of it's a little abstract, but that's fine. I think like I was saying, it's like you write rhythmically. I don't know how people write lyrics first to fit a song. I don't think I've ever done that. It seems like it would be a little limiting in a way that your song is. It has to be.
You rephrase things. Because that's mostly what I do is like, I want to have an idea and I'll sort of write it against sort of a dumb song. Like that's in my,
do you do that? Do you write lyrics first?
Yeah. And often it's even like I'm listening to a different song. I'm listening to a song by Bob Mould and I'll write something, but then I only have the links of the lines and those can go over almost anything. So, but you're right. It's not quite as flexible, or you end up like throwing away half of it or adding, okay, well, that works for verses, but I need to have something to actually fill the chorus idea that something like that. But I think this is the most organic way of doing it is like, no, the melody actually has to be said. Like that's the important part. And then what I fit into that, like hopefully it fits. It's interesting in the recent album that the vocals are much higher in the mix. So like you can really actually hear what you're saying. I didn't have the lyrics to Bad Move. We didn't talk about this, that you chose. Then I Quit. You had this low fake English thing. But in Bad Move, you're doing this. And I could not tell what the hell you're saying a lot of the time. I was trying to transcribe.
Right.
Any thought about that? So we now have your low thing, your high thing, and then the metal, the metal space in the bit.
That's just me trying to sing in a falsetto voice, I guess, for a Bad Move, That's my Curtis Mayfield.
Okay, but is there sort of a specific character that is going with that? In other words, that the voice you're choosing has something to do with what the lyrics are about or anything like that, or not?
Not necessarily,
okay.
No. I mean, I used that voice before. Just trying to sound cartoony.
Sure.
More than anything.
Are you a Residents fan? It seems like parallel underground.
Not as much as people would probably think, but definitely like when we were doing vocals, Buzz will say something like, sing more in like a cartoon voice. And so that's probably what I was doing.
And then this one, in fact, I will insert the beginning from Five-Legged Dog, because it seems like even though this has a nice, that sitar intro, you added a pre-intro intro as you've been playing this live more and more. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely kind of evolved over time live, and we'd have this long intro.
Is that something that just comes up in rehearsal, or as you have added a new bass player and are sort of reinventing it?
We've kind of been playing it like that for a long time, and it just evolved live. Maybe we probably just forgot how to play the song correctly. That happens a lot where we'll go like, oh, shoot, we're playing that wrong. Oh, well, this is how we play it now.
I'm not even sound right.
So just a very chunky metal riff. That was not something added while you were jamming on it. That was in your initial demo and stuff, as far as you know.
It was, yeah. From what I remember, I'm pretty sure I wrote that part. I'll just say I did.
Okay. To compare this, I didn't actually compare the run times of the other, like if it's way longer, that this is, you're done with this in, I didn't write it on this one either. Still less than 5 minutes, as plotting as this song presents itself as, that we're going to take our time getting through these lyrics and have a bunch of different distinct sections. Is it way longer than that now with the extra intro and things, as far as you know?
It's probably, what did you say it is on the five-legged dog?
4 3/4 minutes in the original version.
That's our live version for sure.
Okay.
It's not any longer than that.
Yeah, I guess what's, maybe this is sort of a general Melvins question of how long to let the end go. I mean, maybe it's a matter of like where it is in the set. We can't have 5 songs that have a 10-minute jam at the end, but you could have one song at the very end that does that. In terms of this song, like eventually the drums and bass stop and there's just a guitar mess that kind of goes on for a while. Any thoughts about how you're constructing endings?
It's always the same length. That's not improvised at all. It's always the same.
Okay. So just when it's done, it's getting through the sections the umpteenth time.
I'm trying to think, because at the very end, there can be like a jam section, but I can't remember what we did on Five-Legged Dog. But we've ended that song, like even when we had the guys from Big Business in the band, like Cody and I would do some massive like drum ending part, some outro.
Okay. I didn't know if this was one of those songs that would have a special spot in the live set such that you'd want to extend that, or...
We've opened with it. We've closed with it. It's been in various spots in the set. So,
all right. Well, just to finish up here, I did want to include some Altamont. So the only one that's streaming in multiple places is The Monkey's Uncle 2005. And I had picked El Stupido just because it's different than the other things that we played. Do you have any thoughts about this project and this song before we just say goodbye and let people hear it?
Yeah, I'm going to be playing that song live too. So that's in my set. I was inspired by the song Walter from the Kinks. So that's where that came from. I was like listening to that song, kind of playing it. And then I wrote something that I thought was similar. With
a little bit of that Beatles swing, I guess.
So yeah, I wrote that song and had it. And then I heard the Queens of the Stone Age had a similar vibe song. I can't think of what it is, but it was like their big hit. It's the one that Dave Grohl plays on. I was like, wow, that sounds really similar. And I asked Josh, I'm like, what was your influence on that? And he's like, oh, it was Oompa Loompa Boopity Doo. I've got another question for you. I'm like, okay. Because I kind of thought like, wow, I wonder if he was listening to the Kinks, Walter, and got the same inspiration. But no.
I haven't noticed if there were any Melvins tracks that have that. I mean, we just hit a 6/8 one. I know you're no stranger to crazy time signatures, but like if you had
6/8's fun.
A swing set. If you have enough swing tunes in the Melvins repertoire that you could put them together.
Maybe. Yeah, there's a few. Definitely. There's I can think of some that are in 6/8. I mean, Buzz doesn't really know what he's writing in. He doesn't know what time signature it is. Things will be weird and he'll just call it a hiccup.
Okay.
Like this little hiccup here. And then I can tell him like, well, it's 4/4, but it just has this odd part right here, And sometimes it'll end before 4/4. Some of them are weirder, but even Paul McCartney doesn't know what time signature he's writing in, because I heard him go like, this one's in 3/4. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's 6/8.
All I know is I count 3 somewhere in there.
Yeah. 3 is more of a waltz, do, 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 do.
You do it in 9/8. You got to swing waltz.
Right. But, the 6/8's the beer drinking one,
Sure.
Swing your stein around.
Thanks so much for doing this. I really enjoyed listening through your stuff. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much. All right, you too.
You'll never know. Never
Thanks so much to Dale. This was kind of a fun one in that the whole Melvins world was new to me. I, of course, listened to some of the grunge that was their peer group in their early days, but this is definitely more metal than I'm used to, and I didn't even know there was a genre called sludge metal. But Melvins are great. They're instrumentally super solid. They have a very good sense of humor. So I would recommend them, and especially I found a good way to get into them given their vast catalog. There is a 2-hour documentary called The Colossus of Destiny, A Melvins Tale, which is freely available on YouTube, and it goes through the history, the connection to Nirvana, and introduces you to their personalities, their way of making music together, that for me was helpful to then engage the music itself. Now, I'll say whatever barriers there are between me and the style of Melvins are not there when it comes to Dale's solo stuff, or Altamont, which is much more, I don't want to say poppy, but connected to the rest of rock history. Clearly Dale, and I'm sure Buzz has listened to plenty of their classic rock in addition to the history of heavy metal. You can learn more at dalecrover.com and themelvins.net. Speaking of moves between the instrument that you are best known for and some other instrument, in my own band, I'm typically the acoustic guitarist and have people come and play over my singer-songwriter thing, but I've also done bass in a lot of other bands, and since our bass player just quit not that long ago, I've successfully switched back to bass, gotten the calluses back on my fingers, ruined a few picks, hauled my massive amp from 1990 or so to a rehearsal space, purchased a 28-pound, much lighter one for use in my house, also shopped around and purchased a Washburn acoustic bass guitar for rehearsal purposes. I'm sure I'll use it for recordings. It sounds awesome. So I've been enjoying that voyage back into bass world. As far as this podcast is concerned, I've recorded an interview with Steve Dawson from the band Dolly Varden to promote his solo work. It's in the general Americana country rock vein, but there's quite a lot more to it than that. Definitely not formulaic. Good melodies, good lyrics. And I have been preparing frantically for an interview this week with Loudon Wainwright III, legendary folky singer-songwriter, also an actor. His songs have a lot of comedy in them and a lot of very honest, brutal autobiography. Like my recent guest, Richard Thompson, Loudon started in the late 60s. So I'm always really grateful when I get to talk to somebody who's been plugging along that long and is still active enough in music and interested in promoting themselves enough to talk to me. Please subscribe directly to the podcast at nakedlyexaminedmusic.com to make sure you are getting your episodes very promptly. And if you support me, even with a small $1 per episode donation through patreon.com/nakedlyexaminedmusic, the feed there for the new episodes, they're actually a slightly better bit rate. So they will literally sound better than the public episodes. Plus they have no ads. You're only paying for episodes that I actually post. It's not a flat per month amount, though you can set a maximum for the month. So again, I would love your support. That is patreon.com/nakedlyexaminedmusic. So I guess this should be considered my last episode of the summer since it was recorded in mid-August. Welcome to the fall. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're being creative. Keep on musicking. Until next time, this is Mark Linsenmeyer signing off.